Today we'll discuss physiology of language. It is as per the NMC competency PWA 10.9. Describe and discuss the physiological basis of speech. So objectives of today's lectures is, let's find what is hemisphere, language areas. In that we are having two dominant areas. One is called the sensory area for the speech, that is Wernicke's area. Other Broca's area, that is motor area of the speech, and abnormality of language, that is called as aphasia. As per the studies in human beings by neurosurgeons and neurologists, it was observed that different cortical areas are there having separate functions, and these were first recognized by Penfield and Russman. What they observed, patient told their thoughts by stimulation of some areas of the brain, and sometimes they experience some moment, and occasionally patient utter some words after stimulation of certain parts of the brain. So from here they observe that in the brain there are different areas, especially for the development of language. So basically language is one of the fundamental basis of human intelligence and a key part of human culture. And nowadays with the new technologies available, that is PET scanning, that is positron emission tomography, and functional MRI, they are used to study the functions of different part of cerebral cortex involved in the processing of the words. Different portions of the cortex are activated when person is hearing or seeing or speaking or generating some words. So from here they could locate that there are different areas are there in the brain which get excited or they are stimulated, increase activities there. Now based on that, the concept started. There is new concept of cerebral dominance, cerebral complementary stimulation. Initially there was a concept of dominance, means what? As already we know, people who are right-handed, in that left cerebral cortex is dominant, other was non-dominant, and in left-handed individual, right cerebral hemisphere is dominant. So this was the concept, but now with advent of this PET scanning and functional MRI, scientists have observed that the other hemisphere is simply not non-dominant, but it is having some specialized function, and that they labeled as complementary specialization. So based on that, one hemisphere which is involved in sequential analysis process is called as a categorical hemisphere, which was previously called as dominant hemisphere, and it is having special functions of the language. And other hemisphere which was mentioned as non-dominant is basically having visuospatial relationship. It is called as representational hemisphere. So now the old concept of cerebral dominance is replaced by concept of complementary specialization. So the hemisphere which was previously called as dominant, like in right-handed individual, I am right-sided, my left brain is dominant. Now my left brain is called as categorical hemisphere, and my right cerebral cortex is called as representational hemisphere. Now this is having important complementary functions. For example, we see some people are very artistic, some people can speak poems, some can sing, can do some shairi. So these all specialized functions are functions of this representational hemisphere. And now based on that, there are problems also, because of the different disorders of language can be diagnosed based on this concept also. So now let's start how basically we are able to understand first. So usually when we want to understand some language, first we have entrance in our brain is by hearing. Okay, first we hear something, some words are heard. Now these words are basically now interpreted. So these are going to interpretation in auditory association area. So whatever we are hearing, first we try to understand. Okay, so this is the first way of entrance of language in our brain. That is one way. Other way is we see some word. For example, written material is there. So we read some book or we read some paper. So we try to understand that. Now that understanding is going from the area called as visual interpretive area. So this is the second way of understanding speech. First is by hearing something. So we are hearing by ear, but that should go to the auditory interpretive area where a heard speech is being understood. Second is we see something, that means we are reading a newspaper or book, but that should be understood first. So it is going to visual interpretive area. This area is also called as angular gyrus. And third way of input is, that is in case of blinds, that is somatic interpretive area. Through our tactile sensation we are able to perceive something. So again, through tactile sensation it is interpreted, and ultimately it is going down to one area called as Wernicke's area. So these are the called as, this is called as the reception area of the speech, as it is receiving auditory information, visual information and somatic information. So it is called as the sensory area of the speech. So that is called as a Wernicke's area. Now let's see about this area. So Wernicke's area, it is the interpretation area of language. That's what it is called as sensory area of the speech. Location in the posterior part of temporal lobe. It is closely associated with both primary and secondary hearing areas of temporal lobe. So usually in the children's, the first introduction to the language is by way of hearing. Child will hear something, whatever word you are uttering in front of the baby, that is mama, papa, another word, it is hearing and it will interpret them. Later in their life, when visual perception of language through the medium of reading develops, that concept will move forward. So this visual information conveyed by written words is channeled through the angular gyrus, also called as visual association areas. So this Wernicke's area, this is basically interpretive area located in dominant hemisphere. Okay, that is categorical hemisphere. So when we read a book, we do not store the visual images of the printed word, but instead store the words themselves or their conveyed thoughts, often in the form of a language. So now this is the reception of the speech. So that's why it is very important that the baby should hear something. That's why the babies who are deaf, they are also dumb. Because unless you hear something, you cannot produce the language. So for production of language, it is important that you have to hear. You hear, you interpret, after that further development takes place. So this is the first, that is a sensation or reception of the speech. Now after that, once it is received by Wernicke's area, it will be transferred to other area that is called as a, for development of a speech, that area is called as a Broca's area through arcuate fasciculus. So from arcuate fasciculus, this are transferred to Broca's area. So now in this you can see primary auditory area, auditory interpretive area, primary visual area, visual interpretive area, somatic interpretive in case of the blind persons for their language, Wernicke's area. Now with all combination of all three, now whatever understanding is there, now to deliver our answer back, it has to go to generation to Broca's area. Now let's see what is the Broca's area. This is basically premotor speech area located far laterally in the intermediate frontal lobe. It processes the information received from the Wernicke's area. So this speech area is responsible for formation of words and putting word in proper format, that is called as your sentence. So sentence formation takes place in the Broca's area. Whatever word we have understood, it is now converted to a sentence, then projects the pattern via a speech articulation area in the insula for motor coordination, which initiate appropriate movement of lips, tongues, larynx to produce a speech, and by exciting simultaneously the laryngeal muscles, respiratory muscles and muscles of the mouth. Now all these are called as organ of articulation. Means only once they articulate, then only you can deliver the sentence to opposite person. So now there are two parts of the speech now. One part is basically understanding and generating the words in the brain, and second part is delivering them out through our organs of the speech. That's why if you have any problem with the lips, your speech gets disturbed. Problem with the tongue, speech gets disturbed. Problem in the larynx, speech gets disturbed. Problem in the respiratory muscles, speech gets disturbed. Larynx muscle, speech gets disturbed. Okay. So these are the organs of delivery. That's why problem in this is called as dysarthria, difficulty in articulation. Now in this area you can see, this is the Wernicke's area, language comprehension area. This is the Broca's area or word formation area. So for that we need a good vision, good audition, visual processing of the word, that is visual interpretive area, also called as angular gyrus, and spatial coordination area. And ultimately now to deliver we need again part of the motor cortex, that is planning, programming for the motor movements. So again in this it comes down to role of motor area, which we have discussed, your cerebellum and as well as your basal ganglion. So if you recall, if there is any problem in the basal ganglion or cerebellum, we get problem in the speech as well. Now in this you can see clearly, speaking a heard word. If you have heard a word, if you want to speak out, so what is the processes? First, it should come from primary auditory area. It should go to the Wernicke's area from the understanding. Through articular fasciculus, it will go back to Broca's area. From that it will come to motor cortex, and from there it will be delivered. So if a person is unable to speak a word, you have to look back, where is the problem? Okay, problem can be anywhere. So you have to search it down. Problem can be anywhere. It can be in this area. It can be in this area. It can be problem here. It can be problem here. So it is not so easy to diagnose a language problem, because these areas are quite deep, and still we are not yet able to reach through PET scan properly also. So just we are trying to find out and we have to treat them symptomatically only. We are still unable to give good answer to any language problem. Second one, if you speaking a written word, you read something and want to speak it out. So what is the process? First you have to see, and after that visual interpretive area, that is angular gyrus, Wernicke's area. It will go to the Broca's area, motor cortex, and down to this. So if somebody is unable to write whatever written word, so you have to search it down like this. Okay. So this is the way of finding out the problems. So now here I have given a sketch of exactly how the speech mechanism works. So this is the auditory interpretive area, AIA. So it will go to the Wernicke's area, visual interpretive area, so here now through combination of this, speech is formed, maybe from audition, maybe from visual. It will go to the Broca's area, it will go to the motor cortex, then brainstem. So again we are coming down to our motor system, which we have discussed up till now. So from here now the role of motor system will start. Descending tracts, again come down to our spinal cord, that is our alpha motor neuron, gamma motor neuron, nerves and muscles of articulation. So here classically you can differentiate. If there are any problem here, this is the problem of language, and this problem is called as aphasia, that is disorder of the language. And if problem is starting from here down here, this is the problem of articulation, that is called as dysarthria. So grossly you can differentiate whether the person is having dysarthria or aphasia. If it is dysarthria, again we need to find it out from where actually it is. It can be simple here, just like pharyngitis, laryngitis, any infection in the lungs will have problem in the language. Or there can be problem in the spinal cord, There can be problem here, there can be problem here, there can be problem in motor cortex or basal ganglion or cerebellum. So these are all the problems of articulation. But if all these are normal and still person is able to speak out, we have to search down to these areas where is the problem. So now here you can see, this is again we have given same way of generation of the speech. So now disorder, aphasia are abnormalities of language function that are not due to defects of vision or hearing or motor paralysis. That is aphasia. If a person is being visual defect, again he will have language problem, but that is defect in the visual system. So no vision defect, no hearing problem and no motor problem, still he is having difficulty in language, that is called as aphasia. When Wernicke's area is in the dominant hemisphere of adult person is destroyed, the person normally loses almost all intelligent functions associated with language and verbal symbolism, such as ability to read, the ability to perform mathematical operations, even ability to think through logical problems. On the other hand, if there is a damage to the non-dominant hemisphere or representative hemisphere, studies have shown that the problems are different. For example, understanding, interpreting music, understanding some jokes, non-verbal communication, visual cues. So these are the problems of non-dominant hemisphere. Significance of body language. Many times persons are speaking and body language is different. So that interpretation is basically a function of non-dominant hemisphere. So these are affected in individuals where there is a problem of representational hemisphere. Now in this you can see, if any problem here, auditory interpretive area, that means audition is normal. If you do Rennie stress, Weber stress and Schwabeck stress, hearing is normal, but is unable to understand your spoken word, that is called as word deafness. And vision is normal, but he is unable to read your words, that is called as word blindness. And these two conditions combined are called as dyslexia. You might have seen a very famous movie of Amir Khan, Tare Zameen Par. So that disorder, that is called a specific learning disorder. It is this disorder basically. Problem here, vision is normal, hear is normal, but there is problem in the interpretation of words, either spoken word or written words. So it is called as word blindness and word deafness. Word blindness means he is able to see, but he is unable to interpret the words which are given. And if there is damage to this area, that is sensory aphasia, and damage to Broca's area is called as motor aphasia. So here we have finished hemispheres involved, that is instead of dominant we mention as categorical and representational hemisphere. We have seen the language area, especially Wernicke's area functioning, Broca's area functioning, and we have seen what is aphasia. So here we are finishing language.